like to start off by welcoming everyone to our first Senate Agriculture Committee for 2016. I want to start by saying thanks to some really hard work of our farmers across New York State, and also with the help of this committee. It was a really record year for agriculture with tremendous sales and also over 100,000 in the workforce. It really does prove that agriculture is our leading industry. On the table, you have the committee's 2015 report, which has some really good information on what was accomplished this year. And today is a special meeting, I think, because we have two wonderful speakers. And I know over the years, since having the opportunity to be the chair of this committee, one of the things that I have noticed, and it's more prevalent all the time, is how our secret weapon here in New York State is Cornell University, and what New Yorkers, their farmers, have with the cutting edge research and the marketing that comes out, and also the advantages we have when it comes to issues like rabies. So today, we're going to hear from both Dean Boor, which we should note, we have a little royalty here today as a former dairy princess, so that's wonderful to know. And Dean Warnick's going to talk on such an important issue as rabies. And I know for me, I have been so impressed with the programs that Cornell offers, whether it's FarmNet or Harvest New York that touches my district, maple research, the new honeybee research that I've heard so much about. We're so fortunate in New York to have both of you and Cornell. So I look forward to hearing what you have to say, and certainly want to thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Terrific. And so I thank all of you so much for making time for us and for being here today. And in fact, the 2015 New York State Dairy Princess is in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences right now. And I pulled her aside not too long ago, and I said to her, hang on to that tiara. Trust me, it'll come in handy later in your life. And I know about what I speak in that manner. And so thank you so much, Senator Ritchie, and to the committee members for your support of the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences and the land grant mission of Cornell University. And Cornell is New York State's land grant institution, and as such, we are committed to providing comprehensive, practical education for our students, useful, groundbreaking research that is delivered in a timely fashion to the citizens of our state through our Cornell Cooperative Extension programming. And we in the college and at the university are especially grateful to you for the increased financial support that we received last year for a number of our key programs. And this morning, I would like to update you about just a few accomplishments from 3 of those programs, and these accomplishments were made possible thanks to your increased support. And so the 3 programs, Harvest New York, Pro Dairy, and New York FarmNet. And the first one I'd like to start on is Harvest New York, and with its increased resources, we increased our emphasis on supporting safe on-farm dairy and meat processing across our entire state. In northern New York, our new dairy processing specialist will be working on on-farm dairy processing, including artisan cheese processing, and she will help address the market opportunities that we have in northern New York, complementing our existing Harvest New York dairy processing specialist who's in western New York. And that specialist has focused predominantly on large-scale dairy processing, including yogurt manufacturing. So now with these 2 dairy processing specialists, we span that entire link between the small-scale dairy processors and the large-scale processors, and will help to increase jobs in dairy processing across the entire state. Really exciting news, we have a newly hired meats processing specialist. And the reason that this is exciting is we have not had this expertise in the state of New York for more than a decade. And so bringing on board a meats processing expertise expert is critically important for us. We are seeing the small-scale meat operations increase across our entire state, and so having support for those who are working in this area in terms of getting their product to market is incredibly important. Here's another thing that's really exciting about this program. This meat processing program is a collaborative effort between Cornell University and SUNY Cobleskill. And so the meat processing expert will be located along with SUNY Cobleskill, will take advantage of the USDA certified meat processing facilities in Cobleskill and really will help effectively expand operations across the two colleges, so Cornell University and SUNY Cobleskill. We have also expanded our North Country dairy and fields crop team, and that serves farmers across 6 northern New York counties, including Jefferson, St. Lawrence, and Essex. We have 6 highly specialized educators who will address a range of dairy and field crop production, focusing on forage, soil and nutrient management. They'll do ag business management and ag economic development and marketing. So taken together, these specialists are helping the state of New York, our growers here in New York, increase their agricultural investments, their profitability, and ultimately, and most importantly, their financial sustainability. This year, we also were able to further leverage the investment made by the state of New York with federal dollars. So Harvest New York specifically brought in a $98,000 USDA local food promotion program grant. So leveraging New York State money with federal dollars to further grow our agricultural programming here in New York State. Now, with these federal resources, the Harvest New York program is collaborating with Eden Valley growers, with the Cornell Vegetable Program, and with the Field and Fork Network to develop new market opportunities for our small and mid-sized specialty produce growers in Western New York. And it's critically important that we help particularly our small and mid-sized growers find market opportunities, again, for that notion of financial sustainability for our producers here in the state. By growing these markets, we aim to grow more jobs for our agricultural industries. We also received additional funding last year for our Pro Dairy program, and with that funding, Pro Dairy is establishing a comprehensive statewide extension program that links faculty from our College of Veterinary Medicine, and you'll hear more about programs at Veterinary Medicine, with our faculty in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences to bring dairy herd health out from the laboratory into the field. And so these funds that you provided for us have allowed us to hire a new dairy herd health and management specialist who will assist everyone from dairy farm owners to veterinarians and nutritionists on issues that include cow health and disease management, reproductive management, and cow well-being. With Cornell's statewide program focused on dairy health and management that is currently in place, our New York farms will continue to set that standard for high levels of animal care here in New York State. Pro Dairy was also able to fund a new dairy forage crop systems specialist, and this person is focusing on optimizing homegrown forage production through data-driven decisions. And why is that important? One particular advantage New York State farms have over farms in other regions of the U.S. is that we tend to grow much more of our own forage for our own cows than they do in other parts of the country. That means we can control a lot more of our input costs. And so by providing extra expertise for our dairy farms in terms of helping them grow better forage more cost effectively in a way that protects the environment, we're hitting multiple objectives, and again, that theme of financial sustainability for our production agriculture people here in New York State while decreasing the environmental impact of farming here in New York State. The third program I wanted to mention, New York FarmNet, and show of hands, people who are familiar with New York FarmNet or have heard of FarmNet. Okay, that's great. This is a program that works directly with farm families, and it was highlighted fairly recently in a major magazine that helps them cope with the many financial and personal pressures that are associated with that farming lifestyle. And so we work directly around tables in people's kitchens to talk through with them the challenges that they're facing, both financial and in some cases personal. It probably won't surprise you to hear that succession management planning for farms from parent to child is often a source of incredible tension and stress in a farm family. And so we'll work with our farmers to help them through some of these very difficult conversations and challenges. The increased funding that we received last year allowed FarmNet to help an ever-increasing number of our farm families integrate business, retirement, and their estate plans into their farm business succession plans. And that's incredibly important for, again, sustainability of farming here in New York State. Last year alone, our FarmNet program reported that over 90% of the farm families that worked with them in the last year reported either improved profitability or expansion of their farm businesses in this last year. So a very effective program. As a college, we are so proud of the positive impact that our programs have on our growers here in New York State, on our consumers, and also on economic development here in the state of New York. We had a record year for farm gate receipts this past year, and we're very proud to be a part of that here in New York State. We have lots of opportunities ahead of us, like those I have not seen in my lifetime. And in fact, I like to say, let's not make these insurmountable opportunities for us. Let's make sure we're wrapping our arms around these opportunities and growing agriculture in a way that is not only sustainable, but brings growth to our state. But in addition to these opportunities, we also have challenges ahead of us. Due to the age profile of our faculty in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, we will see more than half of our current faculty retire within the coming decade. We currently have the smallest number of faculty in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences in our entire history. We are now at about 330 faculty, down from a high of about 500 when I was a student in the college in the late 1970s. So when you hear, and you will hear from your constituents, that they are not getting the faculty support that they used to in the past, what they're telling you is true. And we're keenly aware of that in the college, and we're doing everything in our power to turn that around. We, right now, though, do not have the resources to rebuild our faculty numbers. Flat funding in the SUNY budget for the last 5 years has constrained our ability to hire, so the funding has been flat for the last 5 years. Any support that you can provide toward increasing SUNY operational support for land grant activities would be hugely appreciated. We also need to address our aging facilities. For example, Cornell faces an ongoing challenge with our golden nematode facility. What is the golden nematode? It is an invasive pest that really threatens our potato industry here in New York State, but it actually doesn't just affect New York State. In fact, we had a Japanese delegation come take a look at our facility in New York State, and they were thinking about no longer buying U.S. potatoes unless we could prove that we could control the golden nematode problem that we have here in New York State, and that it wouldn't be a problem in Idaho. So they were thinking about no longer buying U.S. potatoes, and they needed to see with proof that we could contain and control this golden nematode invasive pest that we have here in New York State. Well, this facility is very old, and it is out of date, and it needs to be remodeled, and it needs to be updated so that when we have future delegations coming from around the world to see if we can control the golden nematode pest, that not only are we not embarrassed, but that we can prove to them that in fact we have this problem under control. This is a problem that came to New York State actually with the heavy earth-moving equipment that came back from the world wars in Europe. So this is a problem that started on Long Island when that earth-moving equipment hit and has spread up into New York State. We've been able to contain it for decades now, but if we can't contain it, we have a problem for our entire root crop industries in the U.S. We need to fix that facility. We are poised to work closely on increasing apprenticeships and workforce training. We have Cornell Small Farms New York Veterans and Agriculture Project, and it's a project that aims to provide effective education, training, and support networks to any New York military veteran who is interested in a career in agriculture and farming. It's a really exciting program. We have a vision for the long term for this program, and that is to get 5 veteran-owned farms in New York State that are accredited to provide on-the-job training for future veterans that would allow them to use their GI Bill benefits to boost their agricultural experiences. This portion is our vision. It's not funded yet, but this is where we'd like to go. And if we're successful, this would make New York the very first state in the United States to offer such an opportunity to our farmer veterans. The programs that I've described to you today are critically important for economic development here in New York State. They urgently require your attention and your support as you finalize the budget. In the coming months, we're providing a handout to you that gives you specific amounts that we're seeking for program for programmatic support this next year. You'll see that the college is targeting funding from the Environmental Protection Fund this year. Some of our programs already exist within the EPF, such as Cornell's Dairy Acceleration Program, but we need help. We need these programs lined out appropriately in the budget to help reduce contracting time, to get the requests that we have for funding more quickly into resources. Right now, we've got an average 2 to 2.5 year time frame between the time that it's decided that we'll get funding and before the funding actually arrives. And we'd like to reduce that funding timeline to under a year if we can. And the best way that we can do that is to have Cornell specified in the budget language. So if you could help us with that, we'd be greatly appreciative. I really cannot understate or underestimate the importance of and our gratitude for the financial support that we receive from you, from the state of New York. Each and every time you bite into a strawberry or a raspberry grown in a New York farm field, or that you've enjoyed local squash with your meals, know that the work that you have supported at Cornell University, the research dollars you've provided to Cornell University, have helped make sure that those fruits and vegetables are free of insects and from plant diseases. Without your support, without your vision, without your foresight, Cornell scientists would not be developing those management tools that are needed to help ensure that farmers can continue to grow local foods that you, that I, and that all New Yorkers enjoy. If we're to capitalize on the opportunities here in New York State, we need to work together. Industry members, state leaders, and institutions, including Cornell University, all play vital roles in making agriculture an economic driver here in New York State. I appreciate your time this morning, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you for the invitation to address you this morning. I've been serving as Interim Dean of the college since August 1st, when Mike Kotlikoff was appointed Provost of Cornell. And I've spent most of my faculty career working as a veterinarian on dairy farms and other kinds of livestock operations in upstate New York. And I also do research on bacterial pathogens in dairy cattle. So for me, it's a real treat to be able to be here with you representing our college before the Agricultural Committee. We appreciate the funding that you've provided for New York State programs in the College of Veterinary Medicine, ranging from combating avian disease to rabies prevention. We're also grateful to Commissioner Ball and the Department of Agriculture and Markets for their work and partnership with us. I hope that you, like me, are proud for New York to have its State College of Veterinary Medicine consistently ranked either number 1 or number 2 nationally and throughout the world. And we also recognize the benefit of having the New York State Veterinary Diagnostic Laboratory at Cornell University. And this creates a great deal of synergy between our research and educational programs and the diagnostic services provided for the state. The programs range from preserving species diversity, groundbreaking biomedical research, promotion of agriculture productivity, and vigilance against the spread of disease ranging from avian influenza, Lyme disease, rabies, and the recent canine flu virus. The college's geographic reach goes well beyond our campus in Ithaca to quality milk production services in Canton, Cobleskill, Warsaw, our equine clinic in Elmont, New York, about 1.5 years old now, and then the duck laboratory in Eastport. In veterinary education, over half of our students are from New York, and through the state's investment in capital funds for the college's class expansion renovation to be completed in 2017, and with a modest increase in operating funds for the college, we'll be able to increase our class size by 30%, which will create more educational opportunities for New Yorkers to receive a veterinary degree at Cornell. We've also been developing a new program with the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences to address the student debt issue for veterinarians. Right now, veterinarians have the highest debt on average compared to any other health profession. So we're setting up a program where, rather than the usual 8 years of college education leading to a bachelor's and DVM degree, that with the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences we'll be able to shave one year off that path to the degree, and that'll help financially. And one of our motivations in doing this is we want to recruit students from rural areas around the state and make it more feasible for them to return to practice in agriculture and mixed animal practice in rural communities, which in many cases are less lucrative than moving to a metropolitan area. In addition to our widely recognized educational program, we're ranked number 1 in research impact amongst all veterinary colleges nationwide. Discoveries range from many years ago inventing the Merrick's disease vaccine, which is used in poultry throughout the world, to better tests for Lyme disease developed in the diagnostic laboratory recently. And we always strive to recognize and be ahead of emerging threats to New York's animal and public health. We make significant contributions through clinical and diagnostic service. This past year, our faculty clinicians treated over 80,000 animal patients, 34,000 at our hospitals and clinics, and the remainder on local farms in the Finger Lakes region. The diagnostic lab has processed over 200,000 cases, two-thirds of which are in food and fiber producing animals. And the lab is always innovating, trying to become more efficient, provide better service. I have one little bit of a visual aid today. Many of you may recognize an auger plate from your biology or microbiology courses. Don't worry, there's nothing growing on this. And this has been a traditional part of bacteriology for decades. It is still used, but it has the disadvantage that it takes several days in many cases to diagnose the pathogen. And so now the diagnostic lab has deployed a technology where on this chip you can test 40 samples at once and have an answer within 30 minutes. And so this greatly decreases the time to have a diagnostic result for the veterinarian, the farmer, who needs that answer in order to choose treatment for their animal. And with that, I want to take this time to introduce Dr. Francois Elvinger, who has joined the lab as our new director. He comes to us from Virginia Tech, where he was taught epidemiology and was head of their public health program for many years. We're very glad to have him here and look forward to his impact on the lab. And I also want to recognize Don Line, past director, and Dr. Laura Bigler, who are also here from the college today. Thanks for being here. So I want to finish up just by highlighting 3 or 4 things that we see on the horizon that are very important in terms of college and lab programs. First of all, the New York State Veterinary Diagnostic Laboratory is one of the most comprehensive labs in the country, and has a great economic impact in disease surveillance, early detection of disease, and providing consulting services to veterinarians and farms. But as you know, the laboratory operating budget has been flat for many years, has not kept pace with the increased costs of doing business. And so one of our highest priorities is to have an increase in the base operating budget for the lab in order to meet core operational needs and also to replace outdated equipment. There are 4 specific disease issues that you should be aware of that are related to new initiatives in the lab. Well, one not new, but ongoing. Wildlife rabies control. Rabies is an untreatable disease in people and animals. It needs to be prevented by vaccinating pets and by preventing spread in wildlife. With emergency funding last year, we were able to expand the bait vaccination campaign to reduce rabies raccoons in the St. Lawrence region. And funding is needed to continue this wildlife immunization program to reduce the number of rabid animals and reduce the threat of human and domestic animal exposure in New York. The second of these is Salmonella Dublin. Salmonella Dublin is a bacterial infection that is an emerging problem in New York cattle herds. It's very prevalent in the western part of the U.S. It's present in New York now, but not widespread. We have an opportunity to prevent further spread of this infection before it becomes endemic in the state dairy herds. And this is a great example where some investment now to prevent introduction and spread will be way more cost effective than trying to eradicate it later once it becomes established. The third program relates to antibiotic use. I'm sure as you pick up the news media, watch news programs and so on, you see a lot of information about antibiotic resistance and its importance in human health. The National Action Plan for Combating Antibiotic-Resistant Bacteria is designed to guide human healthcare and veterinary partners in a common effort to address emerging resistance. Our Quality Milk Production Service has developed a really nice program where through rapid diagnosis for mastitis pathogens, and mastitis is the disease in dairy cattle which most often leads to antibiotic treatment. So with rapid diagnosis, they can make a decision whether to treat with an antibiotic or not, and thereby prevent selection for resistance, plus it has an economic return to the owner. This program has been developed on a pilot basis in central New York, but we would like funding to be able to expand that to all the labs throughout the state. And currently, about 2/3 of New York's 600,000 plus lactating dairy cows are within an hour's drive of one of the quality milk labs. So this is a program that has great potential for the state. And then the last area is in avian health. And you may be aware that poultry production has been returning to New York in more small-scale operations, some more open systems rather than confinement. And this is great. They're meeting important niche markets and addressing sustainability issues, but it does increase the risk for some of the serious poultry diseases to be introduced and spread through New York flocks. And so we have a small poultry program in the diagnostic lab now. We would like to expand that to prevent the introduction or to control the spread of serious diseases like avian influenza. So in closing, I just want to reiterate that I really appreciate, and on behalf of the college, we appreciate the support of the committee for all the vital programs that benefit agriculture, benefit veterinary medicine, and provide educational opportunities for our students. We have a handout that Francois can pass around that kind of highlights our priorities, and I again appreciate the chance to address you and look forward to working further with you. Thank you.
I just want to once again say thank you for coming. I know every time I hear what's going on at the college, I learn something new, and I'm even more impressed. I do have just a couple quick questions. I was really thrilled to hear when the berry growers were in this week, and they were talking about how the research has made them more profitable. And I know that I was surprised that even though berry crops may be 10%, that is the most lucrative part of their operation now. So I would just, if you could just give me your thoughts on where you think we could go with the berry industry, because it was pretty promising comments yesterday from the growers.
Well, I'm thrilled to hear that. And in fact, you're absolutely right about the berry industry being a very high value market, a high value product here in New York State, and we have an enormous consuming public that is immediately to our east, up and down the East Coast. And so I think our greatest opportunities in berries are in further season extension, so controlled environment agriculture for those berries. What we will need to achieve that not only is some investment in infrastructure for our farmers across the state, and with the Upstate Revitalization Initiative win that we saw in Central Finger Lakes and Southern Tier, I think we have an opportunity to really look at infrastructural improvement, including controlled environment agriculture that we'll see across our state that could then lead to New York City markets for our berries. But we will also need to invest in insect and disease control strategies, because controlling diseases under those conditions can be really challenging. So I see tremendous opportunities for New York State and the specialty agriculture market, and particularly those high-end specialty markets. The particular opportunity is in expanding and extending that season. We need infrastructure for our producers to help them do controlled environment agriculture. We need some research on the disease and on the insect control end to really help them succeed. Real opportunities.
And I just have one last question, and then Senator Panapinto, I don't know if you have any questions for Dean Boor, but I did read in our local paper that there's an issue with the maple trees now, an invasive species. I'm just wondering if that's something that Cornell's looking at.
So I don't know the answer to that specific question, but I will check and get back to you on that. I'm confident that if a disease is recognized among our maples, that we're aware of it and working on it, but we'll check and get back to you.
Great.
That was a perfect political response to a question you didn't know. So my question is on the faculty erosion. I'm very concerned. You had a high point of 500, you had 330. Is that really a product of funding, or is it programmatic in some way that we're moving away from certain programs? Can you explain that to me a little bit?
Well, I would be happy to. It is absolutely a function of funding. No question about that. And in fact, we have had in the last 3 or 4 years terrific support from the agricultural industry, including our feed association, Northeast Feed Association, that helped raise $1 million that helped us we're now searching for 2 faculty members to help restore our faculty in animal science. We are seeing increased applications from students to our program. We've had almost 100% increase in student applications to the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences since 2005. So we have demand by students. We have the need for our research and our outreach here in New York State. What we don't have is the money. Right now, our budget in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences is 17% state supported. So when I was a student at Cornell, we had more than 50% of our budget coming from the state of New York. And so when you see that kind of shift, and now our money's coming in from what we call grants or soft money, you can't hire faculty, because when you hire faculty, you're committing for life, to essentially, as long as they're successful, to that faculty member. So our stable monies come from the state of New York. That has declined dramatically as a function of our entire budget. We've been flat ever since I've been dean, so that's a continual erosion. I've been dean now 5.5 years.
Flat funding in dollar-wise or a percentage?
From SUNY specifically.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
we dollar-wise, flat, dollar-wise, yes.
Yeah.
Although actually our dollars coming in from external support from research dollars continues to go up. Our faculty are remarkably productive in terms of attracting research dollars. And are remarkably effective, but we have a smaller number of faculty who are doing that. No, the demand for our faculty has not decreased at all. We hear from our constituents all the time, gosh, we used to have support, and the fact of the matter is, in some ways, we can't provide that same level of support, so it's about dollars.
Okay. Thank you. Because I'm always amazed. I mean, I do a lot of work in I'm the only upstate Democrat with farms in my district. So I mean, I work with farmers markets all over the district, and almost exclusively every young farmer has come out of the Cornell program that I know. So I mean, it really does a tremendous job in sort of putting new faces out there and new techniques, and And we have to support it as a state.
Thank you.
Senator Ritchie and I could work with Senator Laval, on SUNY funding there. So
We'd appreciate it.
And Dean Warnick, I have a question on rabies, but I first want to acknowledge Dr. Lyon for all his hard work and benefits to the state.
Yeah.
A lot of times people think rabies is really not a problem anymore. And I know, I've picked up the newspaper a number of times in my district and seen that rabies is still an issue that is problematic, and the fact that someone was actually bitten by a rabid skunk. Can you just kind of explain how rabies gets transmitted?
Yeah, glad to. And so rabies is a virus that is transmitted usually from a animal like a dog, fox, skunk, even a woodchuck. That the experts are sitting here. They'll correct me if I make any mistakes on this. But the thing with rabies is in developed countries we tend to become kind of complacent about it because it's well controlled in the human population, but that depends on constant vigilance in both pets and wildlife populations. Because if you let the virus propagate and become prevalent in either of those, then they'll spill over and infect people. And of course, the reason we put so much emphasis on it, as I mentioned, is there is no treatment for the disease once it occurs in a person. So this is something where we put our entire investment into preventing the spread and transmission. New York, Laura, if you would want to comment briefly on the current situation in terms of the wildlife rabies and how it stands.
Sure. Rabies is a cyclical disease and it's density dependent. So as you'll see raccoon populations increase, and then rabies becomes more of a problem in that area. There's a die-off, but it stays in the population. Now on Long Island, we were successful in eliminating rabies, and that resulted in every dollar spent on rabies control, about $2.40 was saved in post-exposure treatment and living with the disease. So Canada has showed the same results, a fourfold increase, eliminating it from all of southern Quebec and Ontario. So the costs of living with rabies are hidden. It's diagnostics, it's follow-up, it's post-exposure treatment, it's euthanasia of domestic animals being livestock. So eliminating it is the way to control it, and it's cost-effective.
Yeah. And I really wanted to emphasize that point, that the cost of rabies is not in people, is not the disease itself in a developed country. It's the post-exposure prophylaxis and the public health costs in terms of managing the risk of disease once a person has been exposed to a rabid animal. So, and that's where the cost effectiveness of prevention becomes very important.
Thank you. Senator, do you have any questions for?
I do not know. No, thank you.
I know that you're both very busy and we have a couple bills to take up, so I want to thank you for coming. Thank you again for your wonderful work and helping to keep New York on the cutting edge, and look forward to working with you this year. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks for having us.